Hello, this video is a little bit different. It's more of a question that I have. Perhaps in your local area you might have noticed something similar, perhaps, but it has to do with marker stones and marker points, which are essential in map making and survey. Now, the prime meridian, the Greenwich Meridian, Greenwich mean, is well, one of the most essential global ones because our maps, our clocks, all of these are built off that. Now, in this particular article, it points to the fact that if you take a GPS and you go to the Greenwich Observatory, and you'll find that the Greenwich mean, the 0 degrees east-west, is not actually on that point, and there's some good reasons explained in the article because the observations at the time didn't take account of these slight fluctuations in gravity and so forth. So, but what we have is that the marker, this really important survey marker, and survey being a theme in regards to basically all this particular area of interest of mine. And so what we have is that now for a good reason, the marker has been moved, and not necessarily intentional. However, I have noticed some similar things in some very other important places. For instance, the Jefferson Pier marker in Washington, which was the original 0 point from which all measurements were meant to be taken. So when they were making maps and again all of this, that was the 0 point, the central survey point. Now even the Wikipedia articles, probably, usually I don't recommend it, but it's a pretty cool one because I did cross-check with other sources, so I'm confident with this one. But there's a few interesting points. Now, that was originally on the meridian as well, so it was a meridian marker, but it's now a bit shy off 77 degrees precisely, and Meridian Park, which runs. So the pier should have been exactly the point north-south of the White House and east-west of the Capitol building. But throughout its history, there's been a series of mistakes that have been made. The original one has been lost, and then it was replaced, and then there was another marker that was put in its place. And even still to this day, the marker stone, which was re-erected, is actually 1 foot, a very small distance from the true point. Now, that on its own, again, you can brush that aside. But what I found here in Australia is, again, this very strong connection now, especially in regards to the esoteric, so let's say Masons and all these who were, for instance, George Washington, L'Enfant, and the founding of Washington. But here we come to Australia, and this is Macquarie Place and the obelisk here, which was set up by Governor Lachlan Macquarie. Freemason as well, very much into survey. He basically set up the street plans, the dimensions, founded. Now also he used the chain, and so the system of measure and the proportions that he used all matches up beautifully, but that's not the issue here. But because this was the 0 marker, all principal roads were measured from this point, and this was moved from its original location, and again a very short distance, like just where we saw there, probably not even 20 feet away. I can't remember the exact distance now offhand, but this was moved for not a good reason at all, and now that in itself was strange, and again, but that on its own is not maybe of too much significance, but it is unusual because historically, in terms of map making and survey, it really should be in its original location. Now, since there's been a bit of changes in regards to what the centre point is, but still, why was this moved? Again, just like the Jefferson Pier or the Greenwich Meridian, there are, you can brush it away like that. Yeah, it's not too significant. However, across like the east coast of Australia, so from Sydney, now we're going to go down the south coast to the town of Kiama. And well, the same thing happens here. Now, there are a few interesting things in regards to Kiama. So, just like Sydney, well, of course, they have Masonic origins, let's say, and in Kiama we have a historic, and all the footage and some pictures will come up in a moment. Just also of interest, just when I was scanning, I come across this church here, which is very Vesica Pisces-ish. A few other little bits and pieces in regards to the history of Kiama. It's sort of famous for the Kiama blowhole, but here at the bottom of the at this roundabout now, there it will zoom in a moment, and you can see basically in the center of the screen we have another obelisk. And this also was the zero marker for all survey in the area. So all maps, distances and stuff were meant to be calculated from that area. But anyway, here's the Masonic temple in Kiama, sort of just a few blocks away. 1876, reasonably historic in terms of Australia. And once more, and also this centennial thing, which again I did it in other videos in America, for instance, in regards to the, but that's neither here nor there for the moment. So the Kiama post office, and typically the post office would be the central point of where measure, so how far is it from there, like how far, what's the distance from a city? It's not just, it typically is the post office, which was. Now the Kiama obelisk was, which is there now across the street, was originally on the corner where I'm standing, right in front of the post office. So here we standing in front, and then we'll scan across. We can see the post office any moment. But also interesting in the plaque, speaking about Egyptian origins of it, how non-conformists would use geometric symbols instead of crosses and angels in their graves and stuff. So there we saw so it's been moved again a very short distance, almost very similar distance to the Macquarie obelisk was moved. There we can see again the post office in the background. And now the reason for it being moved was because in 1959, if I remember, a runaway truck hit it, and so they wanted to move it to protect it. But it's very it doesn't really make sense to me that they would move it across the street at the bottom of the intersection where you have a slight hill. So if the runaway truck hit it, it's the position where they moved it to is at least as, if not more, at risk of being hit by a vehicle. So once more, we have a very important survey stone, an obelisk again once more, and again the Masonic connections as well. So just like with Greenwich, if you look into the history, look at the people behind it and all that, it's very much connected to those groups, Rosicrucians, etc. Did in recent video series of those people mentioned in there, especially in regards to Hermeticism and even alchemists and stuff, were the people behind like the Greenwich Meridian, etc. So the Greenwich Meridian, it's off, but there is possibly there's a reasonable explanation for that. Jefferson Pier is being moved and then relocated and then not put back in its original position. I think it's a foot away from it, which is unusual. Now we come to a bit south of Kiama and inland to the first inland city of Australia of Goulburn, and well, we have another marker which was moved once more, and again this is for a very bizarre nonsensical reason. So this is at the bottom of Belmore Park, which in itself, I did a video on it a while back in regards to the monuments and the arrangements. Very, very hermetic, very, very full of ancient symbolism. Again, the whole town, just like the Kiama post office by James Barnett, the post office courthouse in Goulburn was by James Barnett also. He was a hermetic architect, the measures, the symbols, proportions, all of that in there. But again, I've covered that in a lot of detail earlier. Now where we see I'm circling there with the marker, that is where the plaque is now. Of course, Goulburn, strong tradition origin in regards to Freemasons, the original surveyors, all Masonic, the cathedral there by Edmund Blackett, again. But here's like a plaque for the Meridian plaque, and there we see the plaque. And so what they've done is move this. Now this plaque was originally to find the latitude and longitude exactly of Goulburn. They used the transit of Venus to find it. Now the Meridian plaque was moved from its original location so that they could put this child's playground in there, and it was moved basically just to where this pole, that little information between the two benches. So that was the original location, and then to put up a water bubbler, water tap, and a child's park, this important historic survey monument was moved. Again, it makes no very unusual, and so now we just flash over to, and there we see Washington Monument and the Jefferson Pier marker, which itself is not originally, maybe because again they miscalculated it, it's not exactly on 77 degrees. But what is on 77 degrees is the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in Washington, which happens to be 153 yards long and this high, 108 feet dome, this wide, all by the numbers and measures. So again, I'm not exactly sure what is, just making some observations, and maybe you might have noticed if you're into this that in your local area, and is there a reason for this? I don't know. I just find it curious, and anyway, hope you enjoyed and have a good one. Maps and survey, it's a thing.